forecast was supposed to be a few flakes, and I know there's a few more than a few flakes in Congress, but we're gonna get a few more than hoped for today, but I think this is, I think we can do something important today. But we are here, use this. We are here right now, and what we're facing is a total, complete dark age. There is a complete breakdown of the system. There is no way out unless we eliminate Wall Street, and unless we face the evil that Barack Obama represents and the British Empire. And there's not going to be any, minor adjustments or something like this. There's no compromises that can be made. People have to understand what this is we're dealing with. And some numbers have come out recently that have given a clear example of how bad the situation is. And actually, I have some slides here. Do you have that slide? Next one. Okay. Yeah, this is a report out from the New York Times from 2003 to 2014, looking at drug deaths. And as you can see, going from top left to bottom right, this has affected every single county in the country. And go to the next one. There's 2002. You see concentrations in some areas, in terms of the red numbers, which is something like 20 deaths per 100,000 in the Southwest and in the Appalachians, but somewhat concentrated, right? Go to the next slide. 2014. And that's 2 years ago. And think about the rate of increase, what it is now. So this is a death explosion. This is a death rate explosion. Who is this hitting? Middle-aged people, younger people, and middle-aged people. The suicide rate is also going up, 500% increase in the same period for age 25 to 34 suicides. Death overdoses is the #1 cause of death in California, before gun violence. So what is this? This is an entire generation that sees no future. And that is a dark age when you have a societal collapse. So this is not something that is going to be adjusted by gun control or something like this. But people have to understand what was the cause of this, and the cause is knowable. But we also have to ask if the solutions are there, why have they not been adopted? And I think that's what we're going to get into today. It's not that the solution's not there. It's a question of the thinking of the Congress and the thinking of the population that has failed to take the needed measures. Let's see what's next slide. Okay. Next one. Okay, we could leave that. This is a little bit of the thinking. We're here in Cambridge, right next to Harvard and MIT, where we've got a lot of smart people, right?
Right.
Do you know that every single economist out there, besides Lyndon LaRouche and a handful of others, say that no model could have predicted this collapse? Every single economic model over the last 30 years, since the 70s, said growth forever. And what do they do with their models? They plug into the current, they plug a formula with the current situation, current rate of population, current resources, et cetera, financial system, and they project that linearly. And but for some reason, they couldn't account for this breakdown. So here's just one example. This is a book that came out in the 1970s out of MIT called Limits to Growth, which said, that we're going to face a problem because population growth is going faster than resource growth. And so they said we're going to reach a crisis. That's the one on the left. Right? Population goes ahead of food production and you get chaos. But they said, but this is really complicated because you have all these factors of how the population's growing, how the food, whether pollution affects your food growth and your industrial output. This is what all these little lines are on the left. So that's their genius solution for an economic model, for the future. But what they said is that, this is all due, that what we have to do is to stop industry, and that would solve the problem. But, and that's what we are seeing. We are seeing a total collapse of scientific progress and industry. It's been completely shut down. The only place it's functioning on the planet is in Russia and China. And if you look at the Middle East, you can see a little bit of this right now. It's happening in Syria, for example. While Obama refused to take on ISIS for over a year, Russia went in there in a few months, and now ISIS is about to be stopped in Syria. The Syrian military is about to secure 85 to 95% of the population in non-ISIS regions. So that's from Russia. What's China doing? China just published an airplane report of their new Silk Road, bringing development to the Middle East. And this is what Helga Zeppelush called for, a Marshall Plan to end the refugee crisis in the Middle East, to end the war. The only way is through economic development. Now the German foreign minister, Schiller, is being forced to echo the words of Helga LaRouche and just called for a Marshall Plan for the Middle East. So the entire transatlantic system, the United States, South America, Europe is collapsing, it's bankrupt, it's dead. If we do not decide as a nation to eliminate Wall Street, we are dead. That's it. There's no more time. We're past midnight. So this is what we have to think about. The United States has no effective sovereignty. There is no decision being made in the United States government that is on behalf of the American people. None. Healthcare? No. Our foreign policy? No. Medical situation? No. What's happening to elderly people? It's not there. What's happening to education for preschool age kids? Not there. I just had a friend here who said that they are on a list of 28,000 people in Massachusetts to get child care out of extreme low income, and there's 90 people out of those 28,000 that are going to get that child care. So it's a system that is broken down. It's finished. It's done. And what we want to talk about a bit today is why, as I mentioned, that is, and what is the British Empire, which is the one, in effect, making the decisions for the United States. Through Barack Obama and through the United States citizenry, which has been surrounded by chaos and poison in the culture, in the education system, everywhere they look, every day. If your child is going to school right now, their mind is being destroyed. If they're listening to music, if they're turning on the television, their humanity is being destroyed. One of my colleagues on the policy committee, Diane Sarah, made the point, people say, oh, my stomach, you are what you eat, you are what you eat. Okay, well, what about your mind then? When you're surrounded by bad music and television and culture, what does that do to your mind, which is a little more important than your stomach? So we have this question of how and why did this happen, and LaRouche has said that Bertrand Russell is the problem. That over 100 years ago, we're now in the 21st century. I know it doesn't seem like it, but we're in the 21st century, and over 100 years ago, beginning of 1900, total change in the way we were thinking in the United States. And why? Bertrand Russell decided, as a British oligarch, to destroy the creativity of mankind functioning. And here is just one quote. This is a book people can look at it. It is useful to read a little bit of it. The Impact of Science on Society by Russell. And here's what he says. I don't know what year this was published. 1990. This one's 1951. He lived a long time. It says, I think the subject, which will be of most importance politically, is mass psychology. Mass psychology is, scientifically speaking, not a very advanced study. And so far, its professors have not been in universities. They have been advertisers, politicians, and above all, dictators. This study is immensely useful to practical men, whether they wish to become rich or to acquire the government. It is, of course, as a science, founded upon individual psychology, but hitherto it has employed rule-of-thumb methods which were based on a kind of intuitive common sense. Its importance has been enormously increased by the growth of modern methods of propaganda. Of these, the most influential is what is called education. Religion plays a part, though a diminishing one. The press, the cinema, and the radio play an increasing part. It says, this subject will make great strides when it is taken up by scientists under a scientific dictatorship. Anaxagoras maintained that snow is black, but no one believed him. The social psychologists of the future will have a number of classes of school children on whom they will try different methods of producing an unshakable conviction that snow is black. Various results will soon be arrived at. First, that the influence of home is obstructive. Second, that not much can be done unless indoctrination begins before the age of 10. Third, that verses set to music and repeatedly intoned are very effective. Fourth, that the opinion that snow is white must be held to show a morbid taste for eccentricity. But I anticipate. It is for future scientists to make these maxims precise and discover exactly how much it costs per head to make children believe that snow is black, and how much less it would cost to make them believe it is dark gray. This is conscious. This is evil. And Jason's going to get a little bit more into actually beyond the social psychology destruction of people's minds, how this was done consciously in science. Because how does a population progress through science? What the British Empire has called for is depopulation, 1 billion people on the planet. The only way to achieve that is to destroy scientific progress, and the only way to achieve that is to destroy humanity. Because what is it that makes a human a human? Sure.
This is right after 1971 in August when they coupled the dog full standard. So they start, ruining the economy, and then they, it's like, well, this limits your growth.
Yeah.
Now, certainly in MIT.
Two MIT economists led the study.
Yeah.
Benson Forrester. Yeah, it was all once. It was a overall operation.
Yeah.
And then here's just one more. This is on the drug question, which is also Obama. And Obama came into office. Where did he get his funding from? From George Soros. What's George Soros? Open society, drug legalization. And that's legalize all drugs, not just marijuana. And what happened in China under the British Empire. Next slide. The next one? Next. More. There's Evil Bertrand Russell. Okay. On the left, this is the concentration camp policy. This is India, the crown jewel of the British Empire. I think they had something like 27 famines under British occupation of 200 years, when in 1,000 years before that they'd had like 8 or something like that, because it's conscious murder. Next one. This is opium. This is actually California, but this is, you know, the British opium policy, where they forced opium on China. And now the United States is being flooded with drugs. We have right now the strongest strain, you know, and you will probably have heard, an incredibly strong strain of heroin. Where did that come from? What about the U.S. occupation and British of Afghanistan? The production of this being flooding the country, flooding Europe, flooding the United States at cheap rates. And you know, while these young people look around and they're in this culture and there's no scientific progress, and suddenly there's all these drugs around them, and they say, hey, sure, I'd love to I'd love to end my life. You know, this is one with the suicide. So this is then, just one more on this. This is from Aldous Huxley, also part of this cultural operation, British run, 1962. He says, there will be, in the next generation or so, a pharmacological method of making people love their servitude and producing dictatorship without tears, so to speak, producing a kind of painless concentration camp for entire societies, so that people will in fact have their liberties taken away from them, but will rather enjoy it because they will be distracted from any desire to rebel. Well, you get the point. Dictatorship without tears. But although now we see that there are tears, and we had a report from West Virginia. I think people might have heard this on one of our conference calls. You know, a woman said she went home to West Virginia where she hadn't been in 10 years or something, and she drove in and her brother said, welcome to Uganda. This is where people hold buckets at the side of the mountain to gather water for their drinking water. So that is our enemy. Our enemy is the Wall Street system. It's not just, you know, Wall Street banks or something like this. The Wall Street is the drug trade. Where does the drug money come? It's Wall Street. This is one operation. So what we have to do what Franklin Roosevelt did. Franklin Roosevelt understood this. There are actions we can take in a short-term period. But we have to address this question of the thinking. We have to free people. But I also wanted to introduce, just as a counterposition, someone that Bertrand Russell specifically attacked as well, but who was also the foundation of the United States, named Gottfried Leibniz. And what we're looking at is, as I mentioned, a dark age or a renaissance. The situation can only be changed through a new quality of thinking, like we saw in the Italian Renaissance, where people changed their conception of mankind. And they realized that mankind was in the image of God and that he could think. And so this is from Gottfried Leibniz. And since you know a person a lot better by their minds and their actions, that's the best way to know a person, is actually by their thinking and their internal actions. I'm just going to sort of read some of what he said in this. But he was a total incredible figure in European history, and he actually almost created the Eurasian land bridge during his lifetime, which was 1648 to 1716 Leibniz in Europe. He lived in German, and he founded a Russian Academy of Sciences. He almost became the Prime Minister of England, and he was a student of China and a lover of China, and he almost united all of Eurasia, but for the fact that the King of England, cast him out and said, you're not allowed in anymore to make any decisions. But these are his ideas that were incredibly powerful. And he says he was just talking about physics and how bodies move and things like this. He says, so far we have just spoken as simple physicists. Now we must rise to metaphysics by making use of the great principle, little used commonly, that nothing takes place without sufficient reason. That is, that nothing happens without it being possible for someone who knows enough things to give a reason sufficient to determine why it is so and not otherwise. Assuming this principle, the first question we have the right to ask will be, why is there something rather than nothing? For nothing is simpler and easier than something. Furthermore, assuming that things must exist, we must be able to give a reason for why they must exist in this way rather than otherwise. This sufficient reason for the existence of the universe cannot be found in the series of contingent things, that is, in a series of bodies and their representations in souls. Since matter is in itself indifferent to motion and rest, and to one motion rather than another, we cannot find in matter the reason for motion, still less the reason for a particular motion. And although the present motion found in matter comes from the preceding motion, and it in turn comes from a preceding motion, we will not make any progress in this way, however far back we go. As to why a body is in motion, there's always a physical previous step, but what was the first step to put things into motion? So the same question always remains. Thus, the sufficient reason, which needs no other reason, must be outside this series of contingent things, and must be found in a substance which is its cause, and which is a necessary being, carrying the reason of its existence with itself. Otherwise, we could not yet have a sufficient reason that could end this series. And this ultimate reason for things is called God. And one more, he says, it follows from the supreme perfection of God that he chose the best possible plan in producing the universe, a plan in which there is the greatest variety together with the greatest order, the most carefully used plot of ground, place, and time, the greatest effect produced by the simplest means, the most power, knowledge, happiness, and goodness in created things that the universe could allow. For, since all the possibles have a claim to existence in God's understanding in proportion to their perfections, the result of all of these claims must be the most perfect actual world possible. And without this, it would not be possible to give a reason for why things have turned out in this way rather than otherwise. That sounds like an idea that can start a renaissance. Right? That the universe is organized around order that's knowable, that's good, that justice is an inherent principle in the universe, that good is an inherent part of the universe. And this was the foundation of the United States. This was the foundation of modern nation states, which Tony Blair has said he wants to reverse, and others want to reverse. They want to divide the country up. They want to make states, not just Texas wants to secede, Oregon, Washington, they want to make Cascadia, Washington State. They've had all these plans, how to divide the country up. And this is, yeah, but what Hamilton knew was that we are that the country must be unified as a principle, as a social principle, committed to the future around this Leibnizian concept of justice and good and development. So why, again, why does your neighbor not, worried about Trump and et cetera? Why are we inundated with Bernie Sanders and all of this, This, because, the British Empire is sought to destroy the United States and mankind. But as I mentioned, there are short-term actions that can be taken. I didn't actually show the thing at the front, at the top, but the physical economic breakdown, you can show it anyway. Anyway, it's not too important. The financial system is bankrupt beyond belief, but that's okay because it doesn't matter. The trillions of dollars that were created over the last 10 years don't mean anything. They're just numbers on a computer system. We could erase them and there would be no more debt for the rest of the economy. It'd be done. And this is the Glass-Steagall policy of Franklin Roosevelt. This has got to be adopted, but number one, in order for Glass-Steagall to be adopted, people have to understand, what the conscious evil is that we're dealing with and that it has to be eliminated. And everywhere we go, publicly, that we can. If a congressman, appears in public, this is what has to be brought up to them. That Wall Street has got to be completely eliminated. That Obama cannot remain in office. He's got to be thrown out or effectively, put on house arrest or something by a group of responsible other leaders. And this is what we're moving for. And like Roosevelt did in 1933, we can put all of these young people to work. We can put them to work in training programs. We just produced a new pamphlet, which everyone should get. The United States joins the new Silk Road, a Hamiltonian vision for an economic renaissance, which goes through all the new sectors in the economy that can be produced. Whole entire new categories of the economy can be produced with fusion, with a space program. We're not just going to rebuild, we can do something totally new for the nation. And I think Jason will probably get into that a little bit more about what are some of the advancing concepts that we that are available to us right now, that are available, that China is adopting, that Russia is working on. China's building nuclear plants all over the place. The Silk Road policy of China, it has 60 countries along the belt and the road. 40 of them are going nuclear. Germany is shutting down their nuclear, the United States is shutting down our nuclear. Our energy production per person in the United States has collapsed. Actually, we can show that, go back a couple slides. One before it, let's see. Okay, yeah. So this is U.S. power per capita, actual, physical watts per person, available per person. 1780 to 1970. And these are based on, you see how the increases come, the different colors. Those are different technologies, wood, coal, oil, etc. Progress going up, each generation better than before. Go to the next one. Look at the end there, right, with 1970, where the little cutout doesn't appear. What happened in 1970? We stopped progress. The energy per person collapsed. So they say we don't have clean water. for California, they say we don't have medical equipment. We shut down our energy. You shut down your energy, you can't do much else. And not to mention the other effects that go from new technologies that would have been applied if we had gone nuclear and to fusion. But so this is what we must do. China is doing it. They just graduated 2,000 fusion scientists last year. So this is what we have to do. Okay, I think that's good. Well, we can take a lot of questions and have discussion. I think that would be really good. I can take a couple if there are now, and then we can take some after each presentation, but people should just ask if there are questions.
And if there are, please use the mic.
Yes. Hi. What about nuclear accidents, contamination, pollution, situation in Japan, 3 Mile Island, the Russian plant that blew up years ago? I mean, that's very serious radioactive contamination.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff is just lies. It's just propaganda put out by the British to, you know, make people hate nuclear power. Jason probably knows more of the details, but the Fukushima, the UN, I believe it was, ruled there is no actual dangerous levels of contamination of the water or anything else. There just wasn't. With the nuclear technology, the Chernobyl was a design that we would never have built in the United States. You don't need to build that. There are plenty of reactors you can build that are totally safe. And I mean, that's the point. And you know, China actually is building one of those reactors in Saudi Arabia right now. But that's, anyway, it is just misinformation that's put out there. But I think Jason will probably give it more. Go ahead.
The mic stopped working.
Oh, hello?
I think both said speaking up.
Yes, you can stand up.
My name is Efren from Eritrea, and I think when it comes to energy, you cannot have any progress without the flux density. I think I'm reading Labush's material, and I'm totally convinced that unless you increase the level of energy, the civilization cannot be maintained and perpetuated. But one of the fundamental problems I'm experiencing in this country is the President of the United States has a scientific board of advisors, you know, who are educated, who know physics, who know chemistry and stuff like that. So what do those American scientists advise the President of the United States if we are going to continue progress in this country and also European countries also? And do they advise the President of the United States with the correct principles, you know, to develop the nation, or they are just sellouts?
You're saying how do we deal with that, the fact that the science advisors are not competent?
No, I think if the United States wants to continue progress, you know, to develop the physical economy as Roosevelt did, I think Roosevelt must have had good scientific advisors to develop the economy. But the current scientists of America, what do they advise the President of the United States when he's in power? Do they support nuclear energy, or they simply are sell out to the British Empire?
Mostly they have gone along with the propaganda. I mean, any scientist to be public, and Tom, actually, we have Tom Wysmuller speaking today, he's been involved in this directly, but there is funding for science only that goes along with, you know, the narrative of environmentalism, etc. The current, what's his name? The current science advisor,
John Holdren,
is a nuclear scientist. Apparently he's been for fusion before, but in the current, you know, structure, he goes along with the cut on funding. I mean, yeah, the US Congress voted for fusion in 1980. They passed a bill to create a fusion institute, you know, for the United States. But this was shut down by a small group of people that affected the presidency and eliminated the funding. So I think that is the question, is this deeper question today that's being discussed, is how do we actually change the culture and change the consciousness of true ideas. That's what I have to say on it. Now we can do the next presentation and take up some more. Oh. Go ahead.
I think it would be nice if we could hear more about zero-point energy or Tesla energy, then we wouldn't have to worry about this debate of whether nuclear energy is dangerous or not dangerous, whether it's lies, whether it's truth. Just go to clearly safe energy.
Okay, yeah, I think that's going to be taken up in the next presentation.